All right, predictive analytics. I have a great deal of skepticism around this, and I'm being very upfront because I know a lot of people analytics leaders, practitioners, tech companies are very committed to enabling predictive analytics. And while I celebrate it and have long worked on doing this work, I am going to call out some risks. And I don't mean to suggest we abandon it. I mean to suggest that we be very aware of what we're doing and have the fortitude to say, that's not a good thing to do. So let me go back in history real quick and set the stage. So what you're looking at now is the Gartner Analytic Ascendancy Model. This is from March 2012. I, again, bring this up in a historical context intentionally. And the idea here is that we are going to elevate value through these different types of analytics: descriptive analytics, diagnostic analytics, as they termed it, predictive analytics, and getting ultimately to prescriptive analytics being the highest value, yet it's the most difficult. There's also an implication in difficulty that this is a time-bound construct. In other words, you do descriptive analytics first, and then you get the diagnostic and the predictive and prescriptive. I have long guarded against this. What I've advocated is that we think about this in three buckets. We have the data and basic descriptive analytics. We do modeling and forecasting, much like finances does. And then finally, we do analytics. And some of it might be predictive or prescriptive if it's appropriate. But we are going to do all three of those things at the same time. Why? If we do all three at the same time, what happens when we do the predictive and prescriptive? Well, it adds context and meaning to the data that we are grabbing in the first place. When we do that, we have to ask ourselves, well, what data do we have that is of clean quality, good quality? What data do we not have that would help tell the story, which would tighten up this R squared, for example, or just get more insight into the problem that we're trying to solve? The thing is, not many organizations think that way. They'll do one after the other, and it'll be siloed. Even so, I want to highlight this, is that most predictive analytics tools take data from the past with the intention of predicting the future. And not many, in my experience, ask this very basic question: will the past accurately represent the future? And this is both from a data perspective and just as an overall perspective. And so my contention is that oftentimes, particularly in the age of perpetual disruption as we're in, it doesn't happen. And in fact, what happens is that the future happens and it is different than the past. And what does that do to the quality of the prediction? If I'm a critic, I say, well, that prediction wasn't right, which means the data wasn't right. It means the analytics wasn't done as well as it could be. But I have a few other comments, and it's rooted in this question: will data-driven insights perpetuate the past? And is that something that we want? Now, I'm going to talk about three things on this front. First off, I'm going to talk about a business case. Now, in your organization, are you predicting turnover of a certain group of employees, maybe in a certain area? Many organizations have done that, and it invites the question, why? For what purpose? What is the ultimate action? What is the benefit of doing this work? Now, statistically, analytically, it seems like a perfectly reasonable idea. But is it ethical? If you find a cohort of people who are at risk of leaving, do you actually go and intervene? Is that spooky? Is that right? With all the disruptions that are happening right now, are the models that you have actually applicable? Because so much of the inputs into that model have likely changed. And there's something in analytics, which if you're an analyst, you know about, and it's the notion of externalities. There are things outside your model that are influencing the behavior, and sometimes that cannot be captured in the model. So given what's happening in our external environment right now, that's influencing employee behavior. So if you're predicting turnover, I just invite you to ask the very basic question, why? And if there's not a good answer, then I suggest you not do it. In fact, there's many organizations now who are very capable of doing the work that are choosing consciously not to do it. Which leads me into the second thing. The second thing is around predictive policing. And I have the honor coming up of interviewing the chief of police here in Santa Cruz, which is the first police department in the country to stop predictive policing for this reason. Because the past is perpetuate. The past data and analytics are arguably, and I believe, perpetuating these norms of the past. In other words, if you're doing predictive policing based on historical data sets, you see a bunch of African American or Latino men, who are getting arrested in these certain areas. And what do? You go to those certain areas and you look for Black men and Latino men, and it feeds itself over time. Is that something that we want? I would say clearly no, it's not something that we want. We have to disrupt that norm. So can we use data and analytics and AI to actually disrupt? Or can we do these analysis and understand, hey, what we are doing and how we're thinking, again, going back to what I was saying earlier, the stories that we're telling are informed by data and insight. Is the data and insight actually right? Are we actually rational human beings and looking for these patterns, which is a total normal human thing to do? But if we're looking at patterns that are wrong, then that's not good. It's perpetuating wrong assumptions, wrong facts, even though the facts are there. Are they actually right? And are they a reflection of an accurate reflection of the future that we want to create? No, then we have to change it. Finally, what I'll say, the third thing, is that how we tell these stories has to be understandable. It has to be free of pretension. We have to, and I don't like the term dumb it down because that is condescending and inappropriate. What we have to do is, and it's often captured in the notion, meet people where they are, meet organizations where they are. It is the case where we have to find a common language. If you heard me speak before publicly, I cite this Chinese proverb, the beginning of wisdom is calling things by their right names. And I don't believe we're doing that when we talk about predictive analytics and we're talking about how we're driving behavior in organizations, teams, groups, and so forth. What we really have to be conscious of is, hey, where is my audience? What language are they using? Let's match that language. They don't care, in my view, about predictive, prescriptive, all that. What they care about is the insight and the stories. And are we consciously creating those insights and stories? We can do much better. And that's why we're here. That's why we're doing this show. That's why we exist. So hope you'll join us in our journey. And now we're going to take a short break, and I'm going to be back with my longtime friend and ultimately respected colleague, Lexi Martin. So we'll be back in a couple minutes.